The first lie I ever told my wife was I'm fine. And I told it on the night everything in our marriage finally made sense and fell apart. It was 11:23 p.m. I remember because the oven clock glowed. That time like a verdict while I leaned on the cool marble of our kitchen island, phone face down beside a half-finished glass of water. In the next room, the dishwasher hummed and a cartoon theme song looped softly from the kids' bedroom. Our son, Sam, refused to sleep without exactly 2 episodes of a show about talking trains. Upstairs, Nora was folding laundry into neat, merciless squares. Ordinary life was happening with the volume down while something inside me screamed. On my phone was a message from a man named Eli. We'd met 3 months earlier at a conference for nonprofit fundraisers. He wore the kind of unironically bright socks that tell you a person has decided to live out loud. We bonded over a broken coffee urn and the mutual observation that donors only ask for impact metrics when what they really want is a photograph of a happy child. He was gentle and quick and funny in the exact way that made me feel seen with embarrassing accuracy. At first it was harmless. We traded articles about storytelling. Then it was jokes. Then a selfie from his run at sunrise. Proof I exist before 6 a.m. Then I sent one back from the school drop-off line. Proof I'm attempting adulthood. I told myself I was collecting a friend the way people collect succulents quietly, in windows where no one notices until the sill is full. Then I dreamed about him. Not a cinematic dream. No soundtrack. Just the feeling of standing too close to someone and choosing not to move away. I woke up with joy and terror in equal measure, which is a combination I had always filed under other people's lives. I am 37. I have been married to Nora for 11 years. We have 2 children who can make an ordinary Tuesday feel like a parade and a fire drill at the same time. I know how to pack lunches and braid hair and fix a leaky faucet with YouTube as my silent partner. I know how to look like a man who knows who he is. The message that night was short. Eli, I can't be your secret. I stared at it for a long time. He had every right. For weeks, we'd been drifting across a line neither of us named voice notes after midnight. Confessions about fear and hunger. The physics of closeness conducted long distance. I had not touched him. We had not kissed, but I had begun to build an invisible room where he and I lived a version of me. I didn't let the daylight see. Nora came down the stairs with a basket of socks. You good? She asked, not looking at me in the way long marriages invent privacy as kindness. I'm fine, I said. The first lie, tidy as a folded shirt. She set the basket down and crossed to me, her hand warm on the back of my neck. You're gray around the edges, she said, squinting like she could see my pulse. Work. Work, I said, relieved to find a truth-adjacent word. She kissed my cheek. Bed by midnight, she ordered, and went upstairs. The dishwasher clicked to its final whir. I turned my phone over. I wrote Eli back, you deserve more than a secret. Then I added the sentence I had been afraid of. I think I'm gay. The word didn't explode. It landed like a heavy book on a shelf that had always been there. People like to imagine a realization like mine as a single lightning bolt, but the truth is more like a storm that has been gathering over years, and you finally notice. You're drenched. The first time I felt it was in 9th grade when I watched our basketball captain laugh with the lower, easier part of his body than his shoulders. The feeling came with shame, and I learned to change the channel in my head, the way you change a radio station when the song is wrong for the mood in the car. I dated Nora in college because she made the world feel possible. She was kindness with a mouth. We studied on library floors and ate burritos sitting on curbs. She fell in love with my seriousness. I fell in love with the way she made seriousness less sharp. On our wedding day, I felt the most honest kind of love. I knew the one where you vow to show up and keep showing up. That love was real. It just wasn't the only truth inside me. We built a life. Mortgages. PTA emails. A Honda Odyssey with a mysterious rattle that constituted its own chapter in our marriage. We had good sex sometimes and quiet sex most times and long stretches, where the discussion of sex took the place of sex itself. I thought that was adulthood. I thought that was my shape. Then Eli said, you laugh when I talk to you like I'm a place you can go. And I realized I had been waiting decades for my body to agree with my mouth. I did not tell Nora right away. Instead, I tried to act my way out of the truth. I went to the gym and punished the treadmill. I wrote lists of admirable husbands and their habits as if I could copy-paste a life. I took Nora to a new restaurant and practiced being charmed. But reality is diligent. It knocks until you choose whether you will answer. One Thursday, Eli came to my city for a side visit with another nonprofit. We plan coffee if the schedule allows, which is what you say when you don't dare put the wish on a calendar. I wore a blue button-down. Nora liked and rehearsed casual smiles in the mirror like a deeply unserious person. He texted at 2:40 p.m. Free now. If you are. 3 words after my own heart. We met at a park, near the river where people take pictures of themselves, pretending they don't know the skyline. We stood 5 feet apart and then 2. Someone's dog took an immediate interest in my shoelaces. Eli bent to untangle me and, when he stood up, his face was right there. He smelled like soap and the kind of sweat you earn. He reached for my hand. Hi, he said. Hi, I said. We walked. We talked about everything except the thing. I told him Sam had learned to whistle and that our daughter, Uni, pronounced spaghetti like sketty, which felt like a vow we should all make. He told me his mother had begun dating again and it made him unexpectedly tender. We sat on a bench. The river did its long, patient work. I can't be the reason your life breaks, he said, but I also can't pretend I don't want your life. I didn't kiss him. He didn't kiss me. We held hands like teenagers, quiet and ridiculous and newly oxygenated. When we stood to go, he put his hand on my face and I leaned into it a second too long. The way a starving person counts choose. Decide, he said gently. Don't drift. I went home to a house that knew the sound of our key in the lock. Nora had made tacos. The kids had turned the living room into an obstacle course designed to kill their father. We ate. We laughed at something stupid. After bedtime, Nora sat on the edge of our bed and said, You're here and you're not. I sat beside her. The window was open a sliver, city noise like a faraway conversation. I don't know how to say what I need to say, I admitted, which was almost the same as saying it. She was very still. You found someone, she said. And the sentence landed so gently it made me want to break something. I found a truth, I said. And there is someone who made me stop ignoring it. She stared at our dresser, the one we bought. Used and never refinished because the scratches felt like honest sentences someone else had written. Is it a woman? No, I said. My voice cracked on the vowel like a teenage boy's body catching up to itself. It's a man. Nora nodded. Once. Like a person receiving complex directions in a language she could almost understand. She stood and paced, her hands doing small efficient adjustments on objects. That did not require adjusting. The lamp cord, the curtain hem, the pile of books on her nightstand. Okay, she said finally. Okay. The third one broke. Do you love him? I love what I am when I talk to him, I said. Because truth wanted more nuances than the yes, no our situation begged for. And I swallowed hard. I think I have always been this and didn't know how to tell myself without tearing the rest of my life. She sat back down. Closer. Did you sleep with him? No, I said. But I cheated. I cheated with the part of me you thought was yours. Shame walked the room like a person and opened the window wider. She cried then, finally, a quiet leak of grief that I recognized as the genuine article. I held her because I am not a monster and because I have loved her since a library floor. She let me for a minute and then pulled away. What do we tell the kids? She asked. Because that is who Nora is, a woman who loves dignity in small bodies. We tell them the truth that fits their size, I said. That dad and mom are going to live in 2 houses and that both houses are theirs. That dad has a part of his heart he learned to read correctly. And it changes our shape but not our love. She nodded. Do you want to try to stay, to be married and figure this out? The question was an act of bravery I did not deserve. I couldn't look at her when I said, I don't think that would be kind. She wiped her face, squared her shoulders. Then we do the next kind thing, she said. We do this carefully. Carefully looked like couples. Therapy where the therapist did not flinch at the word gay and told me my honesty was too late and still necessary. Carefully looked like rules for my communications with Eli while we figured out logistics. No late night whispering while our children slept between us. No pretending Nora was a ghost. Carefully looked like spreadsheets about housing and health insurance and how to host a birthday parties without making our kids feel like diplomats to hostile nations. In the middle of all that careful, I made the mistake most people make when they fall in love after a drought. I drank too fast. I met Eli for coffee that turned into dinner that turned into my hand on his wrist for longer than a friendly moment. Alas, I kissed him outside a small theater after a documentary about artists who make sculptures that vanish at high tide. It was not fireworks. It was a light switching on in a room I had been pretending didn't exist. I stood taller afterward without meaning to. Nora saw me the next morning and said nothing. She didn't have to. We lived together like polite housemates for 6 more weeks. long enough to sell ours with its cheerful rattle and find a new place with 2 bedrooms and a view of a brick wall I affectionately named Honesty. I moved out with boxes labeled by a man who still believed in order. We told Sam and Uni on a Saturday morning because kids metabolize truth better when pancakes are involved. Mommy and Daddy are going to live in 2 houses, Nora said. Both houses are yours. Does that mean 2 Christmas trees? Sam asked. It means 2 of a lot of things, I said, but especially 2 people who love you in 2 places instead of 1. Uni frowned. Do you still like Mommy? I love Mommy, I said, and looked at Nora. I'm not married to Mommy anymore. I am still your dad exactly as much as I was yesterday. So, we can decorate both trees? Sam asked, relieved to have located the problem he could solve. Absolutely, Nora said, and I fell in love with her again in a different key. We told our parents. My mother cried with complicated love and sent a casserole like a treaty. Nora's father was quiet for a long time and then said, You were a good liar, not unkindly, which is its own kind of kindness. Friends divided into those who had been waiting for me to know and those who had never suspected and those who made it about themselves. We kept the first 2 and let the third drift like a boat that chooses a new shore. I introduced Eli to the kids as my friend first because words are furniture and you don't bring a new couch into a room by tossing it through the window. He was sunshine careful silly with Sam, respectful of Junie's shyness, allergic to performing cool. He taught them how to make French toast without measuring and I corrected his chaos with a judicious eye on the stove. We looked like a family without the law's permission. Nora and I signed divorce papers in a room that smelled like low expectations and coffee. The judge called our names like characters in a book club selection. We said yes and no in the right places. When it was done, we walked out into a day that refused to be symbolic. On the sidewalk, Nora leaned her head briefly on my shoulder. We did the next kind thing, she said. We did, I said. I meant it. I also knew that kind is sometimes indistinguishable from cruel when you stand too close. Here is the part where a lesser story would tell you everything got easy, because I finally lived my truth in my actual life. These arrived only in slivers. There were nights I woke in my small apartment with the sudden belief I had set fire to a perfectly good house because I wanted to stand closer to the sun. There were afternoons I saw a photo of my kids at a pumpkin patch with Nora and swallowed a scream that had their names in it. There were mornings Eli and I fought about toothpaste because intimacy without a shared history can feel like a magic trick you're afraid will fail if you stop applauding. There was also this. I laughed with my whole body for the first time since college. I kissed a man in a grocery store aisle by the grapefruit and did not hate myself afterward. I watched my son ask Eli how to tie a bowline knot and felt the wild old truth that love expands if you let it. I saw my ex-wife dance in the kitchen of her new place with our daughter and her friend and felt, to my own shock, uncomplicated joy that Nora was learning a new grammar for happiness without me. We built a rhythm. Week on, week off with the kids. Sunday dinners all together once a month because family can be verbs. Yearly State of the Union talks where Nora and I checked our resentment levels like all. Eli and Nora learned a truce that looked like humor and boundaries. When I told the kids I was dating, Eli really dating, figured it out dating. Uni asked if that made me double married. I said no. Then caught myself and said yes in the way that matters. Committed to showing up. Committed to telling the truth. Even when it made me look like a villain. 2 people who prefer a simpler map. The hardest scene came a year later at Sam's school concert. Nora and I stood, shoulder to shoulder in a gym that smelled like floor polish and the memories of dodgeballs. Eli stood on my other side, an arm's length away because we respect the economy of public spaces with complicated X's. Sam stepped onto the risers, scanned the room, and found us. He smiled so big his face looked like a future. Nora slipped her hand into mine for a second, just long enough to borrow courage, and I let her. Just long enough to repay what I owed. Eli saw it and nodded like a person who understands that a life with children is a country with multiple official languages. Afterward, we all went for ice cream because grief and joy both require sugar. Sam insisted on mint. Uni petitioned for sprinkles. The woman behind the counter said, family night, and I said yes without explaining and meant it without apology. If you want a hook to take into your own dark midnight, it's this. The sentence that broke us also built the next thing. I think I'm gay was the pry bar and the foundation. It was betrayal and truth. It cost us a marriage and gave our children a home where the adults don't lie for a living. If you're listening to this and building your own invisible room, I won't tell you what to do. The map from secrecy to honesty is different in every house, and some roads are safer to walk slowly with a professional who knows where to put lanterns. I will tell you that lying takes more energy than living, and your kids can feel drafts from sealed doors. I will tell you that your spouse deserves a person who can love them with a whole body. I will tell you that courage isn't a cliff sometimes, it's a staircase you climb while carrying laundry, one truth at a time. Last week, Eli and I took the kids to the park and watched them build a lopsided fort out of fallen branches, arguing about whether it needed vibes. A little girl asked Uni if I was her dad or her dad's boyfriend. Uni shrugged like a sage. Both, she said. The girl nodded, satisfied, and asked if she could borrow our sticks. On the way home, Sam fell asleep in the backseat with his hand open like he'd been holding something heavy that finally let him go. Nora texted me a photo of her and a woman I had met once at a gallery, both of them laughing with their heads thrown back. Dinner, she wrote. Don't wait up. I smiled in the dark car and felt the soft click of healing continue its slow work. I got home and set the alarm and checked the front door twice, the way I always did when we were married, because some habits are just ways of loving the world. Eli brushed his teeth and turned down the bed. I stood at the window and looked at the brick wall I'd named honesty. It was ugly and true and didn't try to be anything else. For the first time in my life, the heavy book on the shelf inside me felt like part of the library, not a contraband volume hidden behind nicer titles. I turned off the light and climbed into a future where my children will someday tell their own stories about the dumb, brave adults who raised them. I hope the headline is something like this: he hurt us with a lie, then chose the kindest truth he could find, then kept choosing it. I can live with that. I am living with that. And I am, finally, fine.